All right, hello, I'm Christy Hendricks with Change of Shift, and I have a really special guest and a good friend of mine today, and that is Deanna Gillingham. And Deanna is a registered nurse, a certified case manager, an author, and an entrepreneur. She, in her clinical settings, have included med-surg, dialysis, oncology, hospice, SICU, LDRP, labor and delivery, and ambulatory care. She's also worked as a travel nurse, very exciting, an agency nurse, and patient service representative. Deanna is the founder of and CEO of the Stay-at-Home Nurse, which is, I'm sure, what we all would like to do. And Deanna has perfected that. And she is the author of CCM Certification Made Easy, your guide to passing the certified case manager exam, which is now in its second edition. In addition, she's created an online course and other resources for case managers. Deanna serves on the board of directors of the Case Management Foundation. She is a member of the Case Management Society of America, and also she belongs to the National Nurses in Business Association and Rotary International. So come on in, Deanna.
Hi, Christy. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate that you've joined me. So
yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. So my followers, people that, are connected with Change of Shift, they are, for the most part, coming from a clinical arena and looking for ways to get out of clinical. They're burnout or they're disillusioned, and they've heard of nurse entrepreneurs. Sometimes they're not quite as sure, what else can a nurse be or do besides be a nurse, right? So we're just sort of introducing them to other ways to be a nurse, and that is, being a nurse entrepreneur. And you've done exactly that. So let me just, ask you a few questions about your journey. So I'd like to start with sort of a history of how you moved from clinical nursing to case management and then to nurse entrepreneur.
That's a great question. Well, I started off, I had worked about almost 20 years as a nurse in the various areas that you had mentioned earlier. And those were mostly floor nursing, on your feet all day types of jobs. And I don't have to explain that to any of the nurses
Right.
out there. They all know what that entails. It got to the point between the congenital problem that I have mixed with an injury that I was unable to tolerate being on my feet that long. I was doing 12-hour shifts, cut back to 8-hour, cut back to 4-hour, and it just wasn't doing it. And so I needed to figure out something that I could do. Still working as a nurse, I needed the money. We make a decent living, so, I didn't want to go into a doctor's office where I wasn't going to be making the same amount of money. A friend of mine introduced me to case management. She said, this would be a great job for you. It was with an insurance company and it was a desk job. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to do a desk job. I don't want to be one of those people. But I didn't have a choice, to be quite frank. And I did, and I loved it. I realized as a case manager, I took all those skills that I used and all that experience I had with my almost 20 years of nursing, and I was able to help people in a different way, without necessarily putting your hands on them, but I was able to help them. And a couple years later, I needed to take a certification exam to keep my job. And I was having trouble finding really good resources out there. There were a lot of test prep companies that had nothing to do with case management that were creating these books, and I'd look at them and I'm like, well, this isn't what we do, and they don't know what they're talking about. So I was getting really frustrated, and I ended up having to research everything myself. Took me over a year because I was working full time and I had 4 kids and 3 dogs and a life. And so eventually I got my own, I kind of came up with my own study plan and my own study resources. And after I passed the test, I had a friend who hadn't passed the test in a couple of takes and needed to pass it this last time or she wasn't going to be able to keep her job. So I gave her all my stuff and I was like, hey, see if this helps you. And it did help her. And I was like, wow, people shouldn't have to go through this. I have this great resource. I was starting to learn about entrepreneurship at the time, and I thought maybe this is the business I need to try. So that's where the first book came out.
Wow. Okay. So you would not, I mean, just kind of heard of entrepreneurship or about nurse entrepreneurs and just sort of stumbled upon it like, oh, maybe I
Yeah.
can make money at this. I mean, how did the idea come to you that, well, I can write a book or create a study guide and sell it? Because I think a lot of nurses, they're not of that sales mindset. They're thinking, well, to be a nurse, I've got to be helping people in a clinic or whatever.
Yeah, I love that question because, most people ask your first question and they never ask that second question. So that's really good. I thought entrepreneurship was for other people. I thought it was something almost like that you were born into, or you grew into a family of entrepreneurs, or I was never around that when I was growing up. You got a job, you went to work,
Right.
and you went to work for other people. And I never
Right.
thought that I could be one of those other people.
Mhm.
And so I started listening to different people who were entrepreneurs, and I was like, well, they were just normal like me before they became an entrepreneur. And I started listening to more and more and talking to more people and reading more books and realizing, about journeys, about how people went and started their first business and what they did. And I realized that they were just normal people too, and it's not something that you have to be stamped with a little stamp that says, okay, you're allowed to be an entrepreneur. Nobody needs to give you permission. That
Mhm.
if you see a need, if you see something that needs to be made, we all say, oh, I thought of that. When we see something, we say, oh, I thought of that. They took my idea. No, the difference is they actually implemented the idea.
Right.
Ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has ideas, but when you actually implement it, that's when you become a business owner. And on that also, I think nurses are perfect entrepreneurs. We we are trained to go into a situation, assess. So we assess what the needs are, and then we make a plan, and then we implement, and then we evaluate. And then we go back and we do that again based on what we see with that evaluation. Is it working? Is it not? Do we need to change course? Do we need to keep going? And that's exactly what a business owner does. We find a need,
Right.
we make a plan to fill that need,
Hmm.
we carry out the plan, and then we evaluate to see if it's working, and then we readjust. So it's the same exact process you use on the floor every day with your patients that you use now to create a business.
That's so interesting, and I've never heard anybody mention that or talk about that. But you're so right. It is. You do exactly that.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so with that being said, then what would you say? I know a lot of nurses are like, well, I kind of have an idea. Maybe I could do this. Maybe this could be a product or service that I could offer. So, what would be the first 5 steps that you would suggest for a nurse to say working in clinical to take that leap or to take that initial step or with those first 5 steps towards being a nurse entrepreneur? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think the first thing you do is you talk to other people about it, and people are always afraid to do that. They're going to be like, well, they're going to steal my idea.
Yeah.
But reach studies show that people don't steal ideas because nobody implements.
Mhm.
And that's where, to be a nurse entrepreneur, you kind of it's going from having the idea to implementing the idea. But the first thing you need to do is just talk to other people. They'll give you feedback. If you think you have something that is really needed, talk to the people who would be using it and ask them, is that something that they want? Because a lot of times we think we want it, but until I talked to another nurse who needed the same resource I did, I didn't know that that was something that other people were looking for too. So when you say, okay, and then when I said, well, I was thinking about writing this, making a book, and she's like, yeah, other people need this, and then talking to other people. So the first thing you need to do is let other people know what your ideas are and get some good, honest feedback, because it's before you go full-fledged into something, they may have some good suggestions about the direction that you want to take it. And the next thing is implement. You just got to start doing it. It's so much better to have a bad idea that you implement and it doesn't work, and then it doesn't work, and you can move on to the next idea. And the difference between successful entrepreneurs and failures are the successful ones just keep trying until they succeed. So
Right. And
yeah,
you learn something.
you
What I've
learn.
learned is that you learn something each time. Each failure
Exactly.
brings like more knowledge, more experience, and then you know what not to do. And it kind of leads you in the direction of then learning what to do. And then I think, in talking to other nurse entrepreneurs, you kind of find out all these different resources, different ways of doing things. I know that you and I exchange ideas all the time. So it's like, why recreate the wheel find out from your fellow nurses or, entrepreneurs, what they're doing that works. So, but go
Right.
ahead, go ahead.
Well, and then that's the next thing is join a community of other like-minded people, entrepreneurs. Christy and I were in a mastermind together, which is great. It just gets you in with other people who think the same way. Because, if you grew up like I did, where you just get a job, to start thinking about moving out of that mindset into the mindset of being the person who creates jobs and creating your own business and your own lifestyle, it's really it's hard to do when everybody else around you is still in the mindset of, well, why would you do that? You have a great job, you're making good money, why would you want to do that? So you need to put yourself around other people like that, and you need to find them. I'm sure Christy has some great resources with Change of Shift to get you involved with other people. There's like an MBA in different organizations. There's all kinds of ways that you can go out. You need to get around other people, whether it's through a Zoom call, whether it's emails, whether whatever it is, so that you can actually start to think outside the box. You need to start thinking more broadly than that little narrow, you get up and you go to work every day. And so that's a really important step also. And then the next one is to just do it. Don't spend so much time thinking about it and thinking about your project and planning it out. It's better to put out an okay first project than never put out the perfect project.
Right.
So the first thing, I'll admit right now, you said it was the second edition of the book's on. I just did a community college had asked me to make a course out of my book that they can use at their college. And so I was going through the whole book and making an annotated teacher's edition. And I found all these things. I'm like, I'm embarrassed by the second edition. I'm embarrassed by the first edition. I'm going to create a third edition now, because it's like, oh my gosh, I could have said that better. Why didn't I say it this way? Or why didn't I explain this way? Or I should have mentioned this and I didn't. And it's okay, because I've still helped thousands of people with those first two products. And if I would have waited and tried to get it perfect, that would have been all these people who would have never had the resource. So it doesn't matter if your first product is perfect. Just put it out there, get the feedback from people. And the feedback I have is, not, I mean, like 95% is like, don't change a thing, it's perfect, but I still know it can be better. So I'm going to change it for me, but chances are it's not as bad as you think it is.
Right, exactly. And what I've noticed is that you're in your mind because you know everything that you want to say and everything that you want to put down in your product, your content, or whatever it is. But nobody else knows what it is you're thinking. Oh, I forgot to include that. They don't know.
Exactly.
So, yeah, stop being a perfectionist. And that's hard sometimes, I think, for nurses, because we want to get it right. And like from my background coming from NICU, the
You have to get it
tiniest
right.
the tiniest little being off just the tiniest little bit can mean life or death. But don't think that way as a nurse entrepreneur. It's okay. You can kind of let
Right.
go, relax a little bit, in that way.
Yeah,
I
this is
want
almost like going into like research where you're trying it. Like, when they put out a new drug, they say, okay, we're going to try this dose, this dose, this dose, and this dose, and see see how people react to them. And it's kind of like the same thing, when you're doing a clinical trial, you're putting it out there and you're not expecting it to be perfect, and you let people know this is the first one. It may not be perfect, and I want your feedback so that I can make it better. And you'll be surprised at how people want to give you that feedback. They want to tell you what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and people are really honest and kind. And yeah.
Yeah, they are. And you know what? Let me back up to a comment that you made earlier about reaching out to people and other people in the space and kind of getting that community. I want to say to that, and you tell me if you've had this experience, is the nurses that are out there, the nurse entrepreneurs, they're the nicest people, and they're so willing to help you along the way. It's almost like the opposite of sometimes what our clinical experience is, where those nurses can be very protective and they don't want to help you, and you're just in their way. Don't bother me. I found it to be in this realm just the opposite. People are so welcoming, and they're eager to help you, other nurses. So reach out on social media or forums and stuff. They're eager to help you along.
Yeah, I've noticed the exact same thing. And it's, at first you're a little apprehensive because we do have that reputation of eating our young and not really being helpful. But that's not the case with the nurse entrepreneurs. They are just so willing to help and to give advice, and we want you to not make the mistakes that we have and learn from them and do even better than we did. And we love seeing people succeed. We love it when other nurse entrepreneurs are succeeding. It's like we're a sisterhood, and we all want to see everybody do well, because it makes us all look good.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so do you have any other suggestions for, first steps for a new nurse entrepreneur or an aspiring nurse entrepreneur?
No, I think that's a lot of first steps for
That's
people
a
to get
lot
on.
of first steps to start with. Okay, and then let me just ask you, do you have like any kinds of, comments or suggestions? Because in your space, you're a writer and you've got your the study guide, but what about CEUs? What is your opinion, or do you have any comments about if you're a nurse author authoring a course or something that somebody can get their continuing education units?
Yeah, I think it's great to offer continuing education. People want it, so it makes your course much more valuable. And we did start offering continuing education a couple months ago. You need to think about a few things. Is it something you're going to do locally? Like, are you doing a seminar type thing where everybody's coming to you, and are they all from the same state? Because as we know, each individual state has their own requirements for continuing education. So if your state board of nursing only accepts certain other state boards of nursing, but I was able to find a place that is able to handle the whole United States, which is wonderful. So I go to one place, get all my continuing education and it covers all 50 states. So that made it much easier. But I think it's a wonderful thing to offer. It's not anywhere near as hard as I thought it would be. You do have to submit some information, but I think it's worth it for the participants. They enjoy getting that recognition that they've learned something. And
Okay, okay.
one more thing, it doesn't have to be really, like we think as nurses that it has to be 100% relevant to nursing. It has to be like on diabetes or heart disease or something like that.
Right.
I've attended conferences that are industry standard conferences, and they're teaching you about social media and like how social media affects your clinical practice. So you can go outside the box with your continuing education too.
Oh, okay,
So,
okay.
as long as you can relate it to something that the nurse needs to know, it doesn't have to just be 100% clinical. It can be, the ethics of using social media in your practice, or, different things like that. So um, it's always good to ask. And if they say no, then you can ask them what you would need to include to make it, so that they would provide the continuing education.
Okay, okay, good to know. And then also one other question about CEUs is now in order to offer a course for nurses to get their CEUs, do you have to be like an MSN or a nurse educator or a
No,
BSN? How does that work?
no. You do have to submit a CV with your when you are getting your continuing education, and they review it. And as long as you have a knowledge of the subject that you're teaching,
Okay.
because you have pharmacy reps that are coming in, and they're having somebody who's not a nurse,
Yeah, that's true.
somebody, and they're teaching about the effects of their medication. So as long as as long as you have the knowledge to teach on that subject, you don't have to have any type of a specialty. You don't have you don't have to have an RN, even. You don't have to have a license. You don't have to have an advanced degree, a bachelor's, an associate. It doesn't matter.
Okay, well that's good to know, because I know that some nurses, they might have an idea like you of doing a study guide or maybe an NCLEX prep or something like that, and think, well, gosh, nobody's going to buy this if they can't get CEUs. But you just answered that question.
Yeah.
They are able to offer their product and the
Yes.
CEUs to go with it, right?
Yes. And
Okay.
just before we leave that subject, I had the same feeling about my book. I have an associate degree. I went to community college. I don't have a bachelor's. I don't have a master's, and I don't have a PhD. I say I don't have alphabet soup after my name. And it's okay. I didn't want to publish my book because I thought, well, who's going to listen to me? I don't have all these initials. I don't have a doctorate degree. I don't have a master's degree. I can't write it. But then I had to kind of step away from that and say, well, it helped this other person. And if it helps other people, it doesn't matter what initials I have behind my name. I spent, probably 10 years homeschooling my children. I know a lot about education that, practical. I've actually had to do it. I've had to research when there was an issue or a problem or something wasn't, different ways to learn and different learning styles. So even though I don't have that formal education, I do have a way of getting the point across. And
Mhm.
so don't hold yourself back and say, well, don't let that be a reason why you don't do it. If you can help people to understand something, that's the point.
Right. I agree. I agree. Okay, let me also ask you, what are the best marketing practices for promoting or selling your ebook in a nursing topic? I mean, what would you suggest to people if they want to be nurse authors? How do they get it out there? How do they market that?
That is great. Whether you want to self-publish or go with a publisher, you have to have a platform. A lot of people think, well, if I write this book and I take it to the publisher, they're going to publish it and they're going to find people to buy it. And that's just not the case in this day and age. They want to know that you have authority and people that listen to you before they're going to publish you. So how do you get that? You think you have to write first and then you get it. But there are some things you can do. You need to figure out who you're writing to first. Who is the perfect person who would read your materials. Um, if it's another nurse, is it somebody who has a specific disease? Who is going to benefit from this information? And then you have to figure out where they are. Like, okay, if they want to know about that information, where do they look? If they go to Google, then you having a website and writing articles on those subjects is the perfect place, because then Google will find, lead them to you. If they go to Amazon and buy something, then putting your book on Amazon is great. But again, you still need to have people to send to Amazon even beforehand, so that when you put it out there, they start selling a few. And once they start selling and saying, oh, people like this, then they will promote your book for you more. Do they go to Facebook? Do they ask friends? And so you kind of have to know, like, where do people go who want this information? Where do they go to look? You have to build a tribe. And the number one way, the one thing I tell everybody, you have to have some type of a website, even if it's a one-page landing page, and you have to have capture emails.
Mhm.
Because when you come out with that first product, you need to have somebody who's going to buy it, and
Right.
you need to have somebody who's going to review it. And if you are talking about how to become a diabetes nurse educator, and then you need to write articles that you would put in. It can be the same articles you're going to write in your book. That's what I did. I put the exact same articles on my website, because I figured people that are searching for this information will find my website, and they can go through this website and try to find all the information, or they can buy the book and have it something that they can highlight and write notes in.
Mhm.
And so everybody who was looking for that information found my website. And then I said, if you want to know when the next article is coming out, you want more information, sign up for my emails. And then once you have that email list, that is yours. You can have a Facebook group and Facebook can close it down tomorrow. You can have Google Juice and people can be coming to your site and Google can change you tomorrow. Yeah, and it's really important to have your own website too, so that, like, Blogger can't shut you down, or whoever. You have your own place, your own home, and then everybody that comes to that home, you want to get them to sign into your guest book. So you want them to apply for sign up for your emails, and that way when you have your product, you can tell them, hey, I came out with this book, and I'm going to give it to you at a discount. Here's the link, and they can go to Amazon and buy it. They can leave a review. And once you get that started and Amazon sees, oh, wow, these are the people that she's sending me, this is what they look like, they will start promoting your products to those types of people. They have their own internal algorithms, but you need to do the front leg work. You can't just put it out there and hope they come. You really have to work hard at getting people to notice what you're doing.
Hmm. Yeah, you do have to work hard. It's not like a get rich kind of thing.
No.
And I mean, you put months and months of work into something, and but then it eventually pays off. But yeah, it's not like oh yeah, I'm gonna be rolling in the dough in 30 days or
Yeah.
something like that. So
But
okay.
coming back to that, you do put months and months into it, but I think of it this way. I always had my 9 to 5 job, but then I always had a side hustle that I did. I always worked part-time somewhere else, or, I did something, that's when I did my patient service rep. I did something always, or I worked overtime, always something. Well, you can do this for yourself and control it, because when I'm scheduled to write for myself, I scheduled that in just like I was working for a second job. But then if something came up, like the kids made it to the playoffs in the soccer, well, I can just reschedule that, where it's much harder to reschedule it when you're working for somebody else. But it's
Right.
an investment. You're not getting paid right then. You're just working all these hours, and then you're getting your paycheck later. So
Hmm.
once you put the product out there, that's when you're getting your paycheck. So it's more of an investment than it is of trading the time for dollars.
Right, right. That's true. That's true. Let me just let me ask you to comment on, like, what would you say as far as nurse entrepreneurship? Is this just a young nurse's game, or what would you say to, say, the nurse that is over 50 or over 40 or over 50?
Well, I hope it's not a young person's game, because if it is, I got in pretty late. But
Me too.
no, I think everybody offers something different. The young people have a lot more energy, and they know a lot more about the social media, I think, than we do. I've been trying to figure out Snapchat for years, and I just give up. And my kids will show me, look, it's just easy. You just do this, and then I get on the next month, and I can't figure it out. So they have some definite advantages, but we have some advantages too, because we have a lot of experience, a lot of life experience, and um, we have a lot of connections. That's networking is great. All those people that you've worked with over the last 20 years and you keep in touch with, and especially if you've worked as many different places that I've worked, you get to know all these different people. And so we, us older nurses definitely have an advantage to there, because we have a larger network
Right.
and we have a lot more experience. So it's a trade-off, and that's what's great again about our community. Nurse entrepreneurs, the young ones will teach us about the new technology and stuff, and we have a certain amount of expertise that we use too. So we all work together very well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, one thing that I have learned is, and I'm a little over 40, and a little over 50,
Yeah,
but
me too.
don't let the technology scare you. Honest to goodness, if I can do it, anybody can do it. um, don't let the technology scare you. You can do it. If you can create a document in Word, you can be a nurse entrepreneur. So I
Oh
just
my
can't even.
gosh, don't say that, because I have trouble with Word. I can't even use Word. I have to use Google Docs. So,
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I use
I mean,
Word, but
they keep reformatting themselves, and it's like I have this like relation. Word doesn't like me, so like you don't even have to be able to use Word. You can use Google Docs. You can do
you can
whatever.
use
I mean,
Google Docs. Yeah,
there are yeah, but it is, and you don't have to learn Snapchat. You don't have to learn
right.
everything. You just learn just what you need, and you only need a handful of things. It's really
That's
not,
true.
and you find what you're comfortable with. You
That's
work with what
true.
you're comfortable with.
You
There's so
only need
many
a handful of
options.
things. That's exactly true. And you work with what you're comfortable with. And here, another thing, too, is there is no right or wrong technology. It is the technology that works for you,
Right.
you know? So, okay.
Exactly.
Just
Yes.
had to throw that one out there. Okay. So now, as far as like after writing your book and your study guide, I'm just wondering now, what doors has that opened for you professionally? I mean, just
Wow.
jumping into that nurse entrepreneur realm and world. Now what's happened since you've gone there? Because I know that you've gone to some amazing places and you're doing amazing things. And wow, what an explosion for you, Deanna. Go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, it started off, small, just job opportunities. When you put on your LinkedIn that you've written and published a book, people kind of notice it. So even if you're kind of easing your way into entrepreneurship, you can find a better job now that you've actually published a book on the topic that you're going to be working in. So, and then meeting and collaborating with other people. I have found people have found me, they've reached out to me, and it's amazing. I never dreamed that I would be working with some of the people that I'm working with now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that they reach out to you and they're like, hey, let's do something together. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's like you get starstruck, because you're like, these are like these amazing people that are like been doing great things, and you get to work with them, and they're like, you're like one of them now. I still don't think I'm one of them, but it's really nice. It's really nice that you get to work with all of these people that you've admired and kind of looked up to. Um, I've got to write the course for the college, which is amazing because it's
Yeah.
like, oh gosh, I went to college. I never thought I could write a book that they would use in college. That's pretty
Well,
amazing.
and you know what? That makes me think of, our nurses that are not MSNs. They don't have their masters. They don't might not even have their bachelor's degree. So here is an associate nurse
Hmm.
who is writing a course for college.
Yeah,
Who would have thunk,
amazing.
right?
Yeah, I never would have. And they came to me. That's the other thing too. Like these
Yeah.
people, they will find you. It's amazing. I can't believe it. And then of course being able to start my own business. And when I started the business, and Christy and I knew each other way back then, so she's got to see the progress, but I knew in my head what I wanted my life to look like. And every time I would get ideas, if they didn't align with what my life was going to look like, what I wanted my life to look like, then I kind of threw that idea out. Because once you get started, at first, when you want to be an entrepreneur, you can't think of any ideas. It's like, what am I going to do? I can't do anything. I don't know anything. And then once you start listening to people and talking to people, you start getting all these ideas and you don't know which one to pick. And
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. And you get all these ideas. And so you go from like feast to famine, or whatever,
Famine
famine
to
to feast.
feast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're like, I can't do anything. I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. Then you see all these other people like, well, I could have done that. And well, I could have done that. And I could have done that. And so then you get too many ideas. But figuring out what you want your lifestyle to look like, and then finding the ideas that match with that lifestyle is where you're going to be happy. Because you can create another business, but you can create another job for yourself that you're going to be just as miserable as you are and just as burnout as you are in the current job you have.
Mhm.
But when you can figure out first, where do I want to be, and then work towards that goal with your business as part of that lifestyle, that's when you'll be happy.
Right, right. And you've done exactly that. Well, and even before I move on to your lifestyle and where you're living now and where you used to live and those kinds of changes, but you, like, tell me about, I mean, now you're serving on the board of directors for the Case Management Foundation. I mean, like, holy
Yeah.
cow,
I know.
you're like the woman. Tell me about that.
Again, it's just opportunities that start to come up. It's amazing to me, the different opportunities. And I love being able to work on the foundation because we're helping others. We're actually doing something to help others. And as nurses, that's what we do. We
Yeah.
just love helping others. So I was at a conference, and you know, talking to some members of the board, and they were like, we had the same vision. My company's vision, my vision was the same and aligned with theirs. And, they invited me to be a member of the board, and I was just so grateful to be able to do that and to be able to influence others. And I would have never imagined that this is my life now. I mean, 5 years ago, I could have never, even the little things that I thought in my wildest dreams, like, well, wouldn't that be great? It's far exceeded all of that. It's just like exploded.
Right. So, okay. So now tell me about, or tell us about your move, because you didn't always live where you live right now.
No. And, that goes back to when, changing your mindset. And when I decided to go full time with the business, I wasn't making as much as I was making on my full-time job yet, but I knew if I could devote more hours to my business, if I had more free hours, that I really felt like I could take it to the next level. So, talking about going all in, we sold the house. We sold everything we own except for what would fit into my Hyundai Elantra. And we moved to where it is a much lower cost of living, but a much higher standard of living. And it has paid off wonderfully for us. We drove to Mexico. We live on the Yucatan Peninsula now. I live on the Caribbean. I actually have a Caribbean life.
Yeah.
It's and like I'm looking right now at the Caribbean Sea, and like it's amazing. So I can sit here and be talking to Christy and all of you, and like if you see me glancing every once in a while, it's because it's like I can't help but look at like the boats out on the ocean and
Right.
all
And
of
be like,
that.
pinch me,
Yeah,
because when did
yeah.
this happen? How did this happen?
Well, a year ago, actually, we just celebrated our 1 year anniversary in Mexico, and
It's
it
been
was
a year already. Oh,
yes,
wow.
on Mexico's Independence Day, we arrived in Playa del Carmen, which is like that was like, oh, this is cool. What a day. So that was like our Independence Day too. You know, we had broken free from all of the things that, you know, the job and the working for the other person and, you know, can I get a vacation? Oh no, you can't take it that because we don't allow vacations because we're coming up with a new charting system and everybody has to be here and, you know,
Right.
whatever, you know, or your friend, you know, one of your coworkers is having a baby that week so you can't get off that week or, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. I can work whenever I want, wherever I want, and
Right.
I can look at the view that I want.
Isn't that
And
great?
it is, it's amazing.
It's an amazing life. Okay,
Yes.
so one last thing before I let you go, because you've been so generous with your time. But now I hear something about a cruise or some luxurious goings on. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So that's really exciting. We were we have a Facebook group, and in our Facebook group, somebody was saying, "Hey, there's cruises for, you know, trauma nurses and ICU nurses and cardiology and all these other areas. Why isn't there a cruise for case managers?" And we were like, "We could do that." So we contacted a cruise consultant and we have put together our first ever case managers cruise. And we're hoping this will be a yearly event. And we are so excited. When I tell you how excited I am to work with the different people that I'm working with, I have 5 of like the best speakers in case management that are going to be speaking on my cruise. I mean,
Wow.
I just can't. And every single one of them was like, "Can I speak?" And I'm like, "Oh, yes, of course. You don't have to ask." Like, so we have, you know, we have past presidents of CMSA, we have current board members, we have people that have written books, we have, I mean, just amazing, and they're all fun and energetic. We want this to be like one of those fun cruises, but
Mhm.
yet learn something too. So,
Yeah.
but not boring learning, it's fun learning.
Right. And before this whole life as a nurse entrepreneur, did you ever dream that you would be putting together a
No,
cruise for other case managers?
no, that's what I say. Anything that I would have ever imagined, we have far gone beyond it. And in just a few years, I mean, we only went full time a year ago. Well, a year in April, so it's a little over a year now that we've been full time with the business. And published the first book in December of 2014. So, you know, it really hasn't been that long, and things have just, life has changed dramatically. I still pinch myself every day I wake up and it's like, is that really the ocean I hear? And
I
am I
know.
really here? I don't want to open my eyes yet and see it's just a dream. So,
Yeah, and like you mentioned before too, the two of us have been together through that. And I remember when we first met through that mastermind group, and you were still writing your first book, and
yes,
living back east, and I can see how much your life has changed. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing how much your life has changed. But it's let me just remind our viewers that these are just, it's not, I mean, Deanna's very special, but it's not like, oh, these people, they have something that I don't have, or they know something that I don't know, or whatever. We're just plain old nurses that
exactly.
just took the initiative, saw something, saw an opportunity, and decided, you know what, I want to be a stay-at-home nurse, and just had an idea for a product or service and implemented it. And like you mentioned before, that's really the key, implementing it. Because so many
Yes,
people have ideas, but they just don't implement. So, and
yes.
congratulations to you that you did. And you've got an amazing gig going on. And I'd like you to just tell our viewers what your website is too.
Okay, we actually have several websites because
Okay.
my business partner is a website developer. So every time I come up with a new idea, he can just throw one together for me. Well, I shouldn't say that. He wouldn't like throw it together, but we have the Stay at Home Nurse. And so the stayathomenurse.com kind of links to all of our other websites. That's the one that'll take you to the cruise. That'll take you to Case Managers Community. That's where we sell our online course for people wanting to pass the CCM exam. It'll take you to casemanagementstudyguide.com, which is where we we have all of our resources for nurses that want to pass the case management exam. And Blue Bayou Press, which is our publishing company, we created our own publishing company to publish my books, and we are also publishing some other nurse author books also. it's not really a business. It's just kind of something that we do on the side just to help other nurses get published and not have to go through all the agony of trying to find a publisher and all of that. And so, but if you go to stayathomenurse.com, you can thestayathomenurse.com, you can find all of those different things that we do, and the cruise is on there, everything's on there.
Okay. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
The best way to get a hold of me would be to email me at deanna@casemanagementstudyguide.com.
Okie doke. Sounds great.
Okay.
All
And
right.
if you email me now, you're going to get an out of office because we're actually going on a little weekend getaway. Even though we have the beautiful view here, you can't, like when you work out of your home, it doesn't seem like you can ever take a day off. So we're taking 3 days to go down the road and change the view a little bit.
Yay. Excellent. Well, all right. Well, Deanna, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I really appreciate it. And if any of you are thinking about being a nurse author, writing a book, writing a study guide, anything like that, head on over to Deanna's site, and she'll fix you up. You're going to get a lot of information over there. I've been over to your website. It's mind-blowing how much information you have there. So, all right. So this is Christy Hendricks with Change the Shift. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.